Okay, can I have that Gemara, please? So we, by popular request, we're doing Aggadata, right? So the Aggadata we're doing is the Aggadata of Rabba Bar Chana. The Aggadata of Rabba Bar Chana is some of the most amazing and exotic Aggadata in all of Shas. I wanted to share with you, before we begin the Aggadata, what the Maharsha has to say about it. The Maharsha, of course, Reb Shmuel Edels, they say was grandson of the Maharal, not 100% sure how, but he was one of the main commentators on both the halachic part and the Aggadic part of the Gemara. Therefore, we have in the back of every Gemara the Chidushei Halachos and Chidushei Aggadas Maharsha. They're like separately printed in the back of the Gemara. And he doesn't go exactly with his grandfather's approach. Maharal's approach is just somewhat more mystical and esoteric, but he also doesn't go with the simple meaning of the words. Except that here is a very interesting introduction. He says, about these amazing stories we're about to learn. He says, you cannot deny the simple meaning of these texts, even though they're extraordinary. As people have sailors who've gone to sea, who do their work in great waters. They see the works of God. That's a quote from a pasuk. And the waves rise up high and raise up the ships, etc. So the Maharsha starts with a kind of token nod towards those who would like to take that Aggadata literally. Okay, but then he says, yesh kan dvarim b'go. There are things which are going on inside here. Binyan tzitzisa denura, such as the spark of fire, which we're going to learn about. B'tam latzolas asvina. And the reason why the boat was saved by El Hashem was the names we're going to see, the Nakat. B'tam l'shlosh mil parsein, the reason why things are described as being 300 parsecs apart from each other. Gam rachok mein yano. Also, seems distant from the nature of things. That a wave will say to its friend, as we shall see, did you come to wipe out the world? And then the second wave answers it. Come see the greatness of your master. Because waves have no free will and they have no free choice. So what are they talking about? Right? Whether we should destroy the world or not destroy the world. So he says that that the basic premise of the Aggadata we're about to see is Kilape Shamru Sofi Yavamas. It says the end. Yavamas Amrei Kiba. Kiba said when he was drowning at sea, a boat went down, and he was in the boat. It says Daf Shosvinanis Daminli. I got a beam which came from the boat, and I held on to it. V'chol gal v'gal shabola, in every way which came upon me. Nanesi lo roshi. I nodded my head at it, as if, too bad for you. Mikan muchachamim. From here, chachamim derived. In Yavo Rishoim al Adam, if people pursue a person, Yinanea lo rosh. He should wave his head at them. V'yesh la'ayin my mikan amru. So, says Maharsha, what does it mean, mikan amru? From here they said. If it's something which actually took place, and that's what happened to Rabbi Akiva, so then it took place. What does it mean, Mikan Omru? From here they deduced. So therefore the Maharsha comes up with this interesting idea. He says, Ubiaro Shamar Kasu Komish Brachava Galecha Olayavar. They interpreted what happened to Rabbi Akiva in light of David HaMelech's, Yonah HaNavi's assertion when he was in the depths of the fish. All of your waves and all of your breakers passed over me. Dima Kasuv, then there's an analogy made here between Atzoros Vagolus, between the difficulties and the exiles. Shabo Leidim Roshoim, which the Roshoim bring upon us, Legalei Hayam, to the waves of the sea. V'am Rugalam Deinu, when it says in the Midrash Tanchuma, Nim Shli Soachol, Jews are likened to the sand. Shenamar says, the number of Jews will be like the sand on the seashore. And our enemies are likened to the sea. Many nations which are agitated like the sea. They take counsel against the Jews. Now bear in mind, It all depends on the Aggadata, because we know also that the Talmud is called the Yam HaTalmud, the sea of the Talmud. So therefore, in some Aggadatas, the sea will represent the enemies, and some the sea will represent the Torah. And the Ram, in fact, the last Halach Rambam quotes the pasuk I read from which Haftorah says that in the eventual future, Molo Aretz Deos Hashem Kamayim Yamachasim. Eventually, the land will be full of wisdom, like the water covers the sea. So we see that there is this notion of the sea being wisdom, Torah. So it always depends on the Aggadata. In every Aggadata, the term might have a different connotation. It might be a metaphor of a different type. But the Maharsha is saying, in these Aggadatas we're about to learn, the seas, the waves, they represent the travails which the Jewish people underwent. Okay? You with me so far? Okay? So, he goes on to say, they take counsel against the Jews, and Hashem saps their strength. And therefore the Yisrael says, the wicked people are like a stormy sea. And just like, so to speak, metaphorically, the first wave, a tsunami wave, comes and says, I'm going to destroy the entire world. But yet when it comes to the seashore of the sand, it bows down before it. And nevertheless, the second wave does not learn from the first wave, and it does the same thing. So too Paro came against the Jews. And Hashem took him down. And nobody learns from the first ones. There's amazing Aggadata in Gittin, Aggadata Churban, where it says that Unklus, before he was Megayer, he brought up Bilam and Titus, and Bilam and Titus said, if you want to be successful in this world, persecute the Jews. There's this obviously they're suffering from it, and yet there's this impetus which some wicked people have to go and persecute the Jews, regardless of the fact that eventually they meet their comeuppance. It's almost a drive which exists within certain wicked people in the world. Certainly very few, but there are such people. And there he says, and there on this analogy he says, Amar Mikan Amru. There, in that case, it's Rabbi Akiva, where he was holding out that board and the waves are flowing over him. They say, Mikan Amru denosim l'rosh din gal, that we can draw an inference from Akiva's story, which actually happened. How was supposed to approach the world. And the notion Russia din gal, we give the Russia a status of a wave. We also that a person should bend his head and let it pass over him. Bend his head and let it pass over him. And therefore it says here, the Rabbi Chana and the other are going to tell us that those people who go down to sea told me. Shem Yordei Hayom HaGolus. These are the people who went down to the sea of Golus. And then like it says here, that the image of Golus is Kisfina HaMuturefes Bayam. It's like a boat which is crazed at sea. The Galim of Rualav, and the waves pass over it. V'hainu Haigala HaRasha. And this is the wicked wave, Shebechol Dor, in each and every generation. Which comes to drown the ship. Tani Israel, the Jews, Turafim Bagolus, which are buffeted about in the Golus, like a boat which is buffeted at sea. So what the Maharsha is saying to us here is that it's possible that there's truth to some of the things which are described here, but that's not why they're here. They're here because they're supposed to teach us profound lessons. The Rambam says in his introduction to his commentary on the Mishnah that Aggadatas have profound wisdom within them, but the Chazal wrote them in a way that they would be riddles, and the reason for that is that they did not want to give access to simple people to profound secrets and wisdom, so therefore they put them in the form of riddles. I myself would put a spin on that, the other direction, and say that they designed this way as simple tales in order that people who cannot understand esoteric secrets would at least have some access via what seem to be fables to the wisdom which is behind them, something to hold on to, something to grasp onto. And the Rebbe Avram ben Rambam, in his introduction to the Aggadata of Shas, says that they're not meant to be taken literally. The overwhelming majority of Rishonim and Achronim say that Aggadata, such as the ones we're about to learn, are not to be taken literally. Perhaps no Aggadata is supposed to be taken literally. My personal perspective is Aggadata which are clearly historical and indicate that they're historical are to be taken literally. Aggadata which are not historical, certainly if they're about extraordinary wonders which are exaggerated, are metaphorical. Another thing, which is that even in the secular world at the time of Chazal, numbers were adjectives. In other words, when they gave a number to a certain phenomenon, 300, 400, 500, 40, 60, these are adjectives. They're meant to describe a certain perspective on what was occurring, that we should be able to tap in. 40 represents this kind of perfection. 60 represents this type of association. And so on, 300, 400, 500. Generally speaking, not always. 300, the exaggeration of 300 is an Olam Hazeh exaggeration. The exaggeration of 400 is an Olam Haba exaggeration. Because 300 represents the letter Shin, the second to last letter in the alphabet. And Tuf represents perfection. 400, the last letter in the alphabet. And there's certain things which are 500, which transcend this world. Same thing we have with the ideas of 6, 7, and 8. 6 is something of this world. 7, Shabbos, Mein Olam Haba. 8 transcends this world, Chanukah. Maharal generally says the several basic principles, including that all fours represent 4 sides, right? The 4 directions, north, south, east, west. Number 5 represents the 4 directions plus a dot in the middle, which unites them. 6 represents the sides of a cube, up, down, all around. 7 is the dot in the middle, which connects all of them. So therefore, if you have 6 words in the first pasuk in Shema, you have 600,000 people in the Midbar. When you have 6 that's meant to be an array. The word, when you say the word echad in Shema, you're supposed to have in mind a cube, right? Up and down and all around. And the idea is that Hashem echad is in the middle of the cube, so to speak. Everything emanates from Hashem. 600,000 Jews, the cube again, and in the middle is Torah, and so on and so forth. So numbers always have, I just recently saw a Maharal which he said, 1 represents a unity, 2 is duality, and 3 represents one dimension. Because you can't have a line, line is one dimension, right? Right, because the dot is not a dimension. You can't have a line without a beginning, middle, and end. So every number has its different value, different perspective, it's describing something, not counting something. Again, there's sometimes where it's clearly counting as counting. In halacha, numbers are not adjectives. But when it comes to Aggadata, numbers are very often adjectives. That's my introduction. Any questions on that? Yes?
What practical difference does it make whether or not Aggadata should be taken literally or metaphorically?
Because the lessons can only be learned properly if you unpack the metaphor.
Okay.
If you take it literally, then you'll miss the lessons. If you take it metaphorically, you can unpack lessons on many, many levels. Okay? So that's, as we shall see in some of the Aggadata we're going to do. Okay, so the first one here is on Daf Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph, which you have in front of you. And this is it starts at where it says Amar Rabba, which is 1, 2, 3. The two dots in the middle of the Gemara, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The 11th line down are the wide lines of the Gemara that I have in front of me. Do you have it? So Amar Rabba. So here it says Amar Rabba, but generally speaking, we assume that the person who says all of these stories is Rabba bar Chana, and that's how other Gersos have it. He evidently was a profound master of Aggadata. So he says, Ishtoli nechusei yama. Those people who go down to sea said to me. And there is an amazing shot here in the Rashba and the Ritva who speak about this. And they say that these people are who go down to see are people who meditated and perceive profound wisdom in their minds. In other words, this entire scenario was a scenario which they depicted in their minds in their pursuit of wisdom. So the Chusayama means people go down not to the literal sea, but again to the sea of learning, to the sea of profound understanding. Okay? So the Nuchus people go down to sea told me, Hi Gala de Matba L'Sfina, that way which comes and to drown, to sink the ship, Mischaze Kitzitzisa de Nura Chibarta Bereshe. You see that it has something like a bright white spark of flame at its head. Umachinale, and we beat that flame. Balvasa with rods. The chakik alei, on which is engraved. Eya asher eya yo Adonai tzvos amen amen selah. We say that whole phrase. The knife and the wave subsides. So this is, again, an extraordinary statement, and it's unlikely that it's meant to be taken literally. As Marsh already explained, the waves represent the enemies of the Jewish people who come in waves upon us. And the bright white light on the top of the flame, it also has its own interpretation. And you, by the way, if I give you an interpretation, it's not the only interpretation. That's the way Aggadata works. It's supposed to have many, many nuances of interpretation. But it says that in the eventual future, there's not, Reish Lakish says, there's not going to be a Gan Eden, there's not going to be a Gehenna at the end of time. Whereas there's going to be one thing, the sun. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to take the sun out of its sheath. In other words, bring the sun out in all its glory, whatever that means. Probably is not our sun, but some other profound spiritual light. And for the Rishoyim, it's going to be anguish. And for the tzaddikim, it's going to be great pleasure. And Rav Dessler explains that the idea is that the truth, when confronted by it, it causes great anguish to a wicked person. And at the same time, it causes great happiness to a person who understood and sought that truth the whole time. So therefore, this bright white light, it's a white light. Because anytime Hashem sends us an affliction, it may well be something which could lead to our redemption. It depends how we relate to it. Everything that Baruch Hu sends as an affliction to us is meant to be something which drives us in the right direction. The Kodesh Baruch Hu says in the Torah, in the Tochacha, "Batzar lecha u'matzaucha kol advarim elu v'shavta ad Hashem Elokecha." When finally, at some point, the anguish will be so great that you'll return to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So there's this white light which represents to us the potentiality which is inherent in each and every wave of tragedy or potential tragedy which can come upon us. Reb Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin says there's a chazal which tells us that Shechem is a makom muad lepuranus. Well, the city of Shechem, many bad things happened there. There the brothers sold Yosef. There the kingdom split into north and south kingdom. Of course, before that there was a story with Dinah. So he says, how can this be that there's a place which is muad lepuranus, which is destined for bad stuff? So the Tzadok says, no, it's not like that. It says anything which is muad lepuranus is also muad lekedusha, for great kedusha. In other words, why is the place muad lepuranus? Because it's sensitive. If a place is sensitive, so then it's sensitive. If the higher it goes, the holier it gets. The lower it goes, the more difficult and dangerous it becomes. So there's no such thing as something which is wicked, which didn't have the potential to be for great good. I shouldn't say no such thing. So it says Amalek is something like that. But other than Amalek, everything which is wicked has potential for great good. And in fact, there is Chazal which tells us that the Dor HaMabul, the Dor HaMabul could have received the Torah. Had they merited that, right? And Moshe Rabbeinu, we learn out Moshe min HaTorah minayin. It's a strange Gemara at the end of Chulin says, how do we know Moshe Rabbeinu? Where's an allusion to Moshe Rabbeinu in the Torah? as if Moshe Rabbeinu is not mentioned thousands of times. But no, in the Psukim by the Mabul, there's a pasuk which says, "B'shagam hu basar." B'shagam hu basar. B'shagam, they say gematria is Moshe. Why do you have to find a remez to Moshe to give us this lesson? That the Dor HaMabul could have been the Dor of Kabbalah Torah. In fact, there's a Chazal which says that before they were destroyed, they were given main Olam Haba in this world. They were given a tremendous sense of Gan Eden. And there are numerous examples of this. So therefore, this white light, it's dangerous, it's fire, but it could also be an illumination. Okay? So I'm going to digress from the actual interpretation of Aggadata. Tzaddik in several places says, we don't understand why this is, but we know that there's a Chazal which tells us, Harbei tzadikim, Harbei tzadikim emid b'churbana yoser mi b'binyana. More tzadikim were added onto the Jewish people when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed than when it was built. And we know there's another Gemara which says, of course, that Talmud Bavli is the primary Talmud, not Talmud Yerushalmi. There are many examples of that throughout the Golus, that Golus itself became an impetus for greatness of individuals, of even societies. Hasidus came about only as a result of Golus and oppression, as you know in the standard history, as a result of the Great Depression which seized the Jewish people after the false Messiah of Shabtai Tzvi and after the Chmielnicki massacres of the 1640s. They're waiting for some movement to come along to, grasp the moment and elevate the people. So there are many things which happen to us throughout our history, which only happen as a result of Golus. And this is perspective. It's interesting because, tonight in Israel they're celebrating Yom HaAtzmaut, so there's Israel Independence Day. So on the flip side of that is that you have the Hirschian perspective, although Hirschian, Hirsch's philosophy can be reconciled, of course, with living in Eretz Yisrael. There's no question about that. But there is this notion that, which Rav Shimshon Hirsch is that every Golus where Am Yisrael goes, we're there for a reason, and we're there to pick up or give over something to the place where we are, and our mission is fulfilled in Golus, even sometimes more than in Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Yehuda Ramban said this to the king of Spain during his great debate with Pablo Cristiani. It said in the 1200s. He said that you, the king of Spain, are more chashuv to me. You're more important to me than Mashiach. Because Mashiach comes, I'm not going to have any challenges anymore. It won't be a big deal to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But now, under your reign, I have great challenges and great difficulty and great tests. So actually, your reign is more of an impetus for my growth than Mashiach will be, which is an amazing statement. So this is the idea that Golus itself has a bright white light to it. And, we can always understand, of course. We can't understand things like how the Holocaust, let's say, was a bright white light. All we know is that we can see that there's a continuum between the Holocaust and the foundation state of Israel and the flourishing of Torah there, and also the flourishing of Torah in America. Somehow there's a connection. Why the connection is there, how the connection works, I can't tell you. But clearly, every Golus, every travail, leads to some new development, which is part of Hashem's master plan. I referenced before. The Hasidus came out as a result of persecution, as a result of dejection. Everything negative in this world has a potential to be used for positive, and very often, if the positive doesn't come exactly at that time, it follows it sometime later on. Yes?
If it would not be Golus, it would be different singers. People would be much greater in the tournament,
That's what Tzadok is pointing out. He says that it doesn't seem that way. And there's a medrash also, I don't remember where the medrash is, I don't remember who says it, but there's a Chazal which says that there's a Topaz which says, Av Chochmasi, I think it's a Mishlei, Av Chochmasi Amdali, even my wisdom stood for me. And this Amora says that it means Torasi Shal.
In Kohelet.
In Kohelet? Okay, thank you. Torah, so it must be Kohelet Rabba, I don't know, I lost it. But, so this idea is that everything which HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings about is an impetus for greatness, and perhaps sometimes Yes, it doesn't work that way. The greatness comes because Torah Shlomadati Ba'af. You understand what I'm saying? You don't seem to like it.
Hmm?
You don't seem to like it.
Hard to understand. I mean, it's a great thing that Hasidus and everything came because of Golas, but Lamaisa Klaus story would be much better if they would.
How do you know?
Right, probably no.
How do you know?
Surahim saying, it's Surahim someplace saying, we came to the Golas to get the sparks of honest, right? I don't know what this means.
Yeah.
That is what he's saying. But he says, if you ask him Kasha, what would be the same, what would be the spark of the spark? So he says, people would become to us by itself. So we don't need Lachor to be in the Golas.
But it didn't work that way. In other words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's, the Ratzon Hashem was that it wouldn't work that way. Basically, the master plan of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for reasons best known to him, is that it's not going to work the easy way. It's going to work the hard way.
Meaning hidik.
You know, if we have them pick up us, Lefum Tzara Agra, right?
In other words, he manipulated our free will to do the wrong thing, and then most people agree that Galus is a result of our sin. So Hashem manipulated our free will into sinning, so that eventually we ended up in Galus.
Well, that's extreme. You could say that, and I sometimes I do say it myself, but you don't have to say that. You could say that this is even though it came about as a result. Well, let me backtrack a bit. If you're an Ishbitzer Chassid or a fan of Ishbitz, then all sin. What?
I don't know what that is.
It's a specific type of Chassidus.
Okay.
And there's an Ishbitzer Rebbe who wrote a sefer called the Meir Shiloach, and he would believe that all sins are predetermined. Yes. In other words, whatever sins you do, whatever sins Am Yisrael does, they were embedded in creation. And we're judged not on the sin itself, but on how we respond to the sin. So yes, that's basically what you said is how the Ishbitzer would relate to the notion of Golus, right? The sin of Adam Rishon was planned. The sin of the Chet Egel was planned.
Did he have a source for his philosophy?
No, but there is a logic to it.
Okay.
He had sources in Chazal, but the sources, the beat about sources in Chazal, they could be taken in many different ways.
Okay.
What do you mean to respond to the sin? When you already made the sin, how you respond to this?
Mm-hmm.
Not before?
It's not going to Ishbitzer.
So by this logic, you have to do a sin.
No, because you never know. In other words, it's possible that you again, if you let's put it this way, it could be that sin was pre-programmed. But if you go ahead and do it, you're going to be punished for having in mind to do it. If you don't do tshuva afterwards, you're going to be punished for not having done tshuva afterwards. Okay, so you don't win anything.
I thought tshuva is not doing the sin anymore.
No, tshuva is working on your personality, on your character, on your Yitzhara to overcome it.
Overcome means to stop.
Overcome that inclination which your soul has. That's why the Rambam says that it's not full tshuva unless you come to the same situation and you respond differently. It's not enough to just leave the sin behind. You have to have a change. That's why the Rambam says that Bali Tshuva customarily change their names to manifest that they're not the same people who committed the sin. Okay? So getting back to the Aggadata itself, so how does it work, right? So we beat back with sticks, right? We beat the waves back with these sticks, and they have the names of God on them. So the Maharsha explains this as well. The Maharsha says that we have nothing ultimately we have nothing we can rely on except for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And those are the rods with the names, because the promise which HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave in the Torah to Moshe Rabbeinu at the time of the first wave, which is Paro, is that Hashem said Eya Asher Eya. Now, when we're not learning or laning, we're supposed to say Eke Asher Eke because it is the name of Hashem. So, but right now we're learning, and therefore we can say it as is. So, Eya Asher Eya is the name of Golus. That Hashem will be with us in any Golus we face. And Moshe Rabbeinu didn't want to use that name to tell it to the Jews because he said, there's a Rashi Chumash, he says, Hashem, listen, they're suffering enough. Let's not tell them about future Galuyos. Let's not tell them they're going to be more exiles in the future. And Hashem says, yeah, of course, I didn't mean that you have to tell them about this name, but you should know about the name. What's the name? So Ayeh is the Aleph, is instead of the Yud, in the Yud K Vav K, right? So I don't want to get into that right now, how it's also the Yud instead of a Vav, but I don't want to get into that symbolism. There is symbolism there. But Ayeh in Gematria is what? 21, right? 300. Olam Hazeh, right? That's the metaphor. You got Ayeh in Gematria is 21. The 21st letter in the Aleph base is Shin, 300. Olam Hazeh represents, in its exaggerated form, is denoted by the number 300, because that represents something short of perfection. But it's interesting because Ayeh plus another Ayeh. You have two of them, right? Ayeh Asher Ayeh. 21 and 21 equals 42. 42 are the number of stops that Am Yisrael made in the desert, the 42 masos, which are enumerated in Parshas Maseh. There are 42 stations. It means the totality of life is represented by those 42 stations. Also, we say in Shema, the Dibarta Bam, speak words of Torah, the words of Torah, 42. Membeis.
Letters in Hashem's name also?
What?
42 letters in Hashem's name?
Yeah, the name of 42, right. Yes, the name of 42 of Adam B'Koch, yeah. So these are all symbolic of how we make our way through the various stations in life. Hashem is with us as we go through those, metaphorically, 42 stations, just like Am Yisrael did in the Midbar. And there's therefore the name also 42 letters, which represents this trip through life. And also there's this notion that V'dibarta Bam, the way to deal with it at every stage is by finding what the Torah has to say to us about what we're facing. So that is, Hashem says to us, He was with us in the travail of Egypt, He's going to be with us all the time, wherever we are. And then it says, that's the first name on the stick. The second name on the stick is Yud K, Ka. And that name is the name which is also with us, with us in Golus. As the Maharsha says, as the Pasuk says, Parshas B'Shalach, Ki yad al case yah milchama l'Adonai ba'amalek midor dor. Hashem makes, there's a war for Hashem against Amalek in every generation. The Chazal say, Ein Hashem sholem, Ein Akisei sholem. The name of God is not complete, and the throne of God is not complete, because it says only Yud Hey, not the Vav Hey, and it says only Kaf Samech, without the Aleph. So that Ad Sheyimach Hazar Shlamot. So this world is a world of Yud Hey without the Vav Hey. I saw this 20 years ago, and I don't remember where I saw it, but the name of Hashem with the four letters, Yud Kei Vav Kei, can be taken as an acrostic. Yismechu Hashamayim v'sogel ha'aretz. Yismechu Yud, Hashamayim Hey, v'sogel Vav, ha'aretz Hey. Yud Kei Vav Kei. And in this world, until Mashiach comes, till the war is over, it's only Yismechu Hashamayim, it's not v'sogel ha'aretz. There's the rejoicing, so to speak, is in heaven, not in this world. Right? It says the Gemara Brachos says, also Adam Shemali Piv Tzchok B'Olam Hazeh, a person is not allowed to fill his mouth full of laughter in this world. Right? Because Ozimali Tzchok B'Inu then, the Tzchok B'Inu then, and the ultimate redemption, that's when our mouths will be able to be filled with laughter. So this world is still Yismuch Shemayim, it's not yet V'sogel Ha'aretz. Our job, by uplifting all the sparks, is to bring about V'sogel haaretz, the ultimate redemption. So far we haven't succeeded, but that's what we're supposed to be doing. So this is, again, the name Yud Kei is also represents this idea of being in Golus. And of course, Yud Kei has lots of connotations as well, because 15 is like the numbers of Shira Malos, the steps in the Beis HaMikdash, the ladder of ascent, which we have in this world to get from one level to another level. That's what those 15 steps in the Beis HaMikdash represented. And the idea of Levium singing on the steps, that's where they stood and sang, represents how these steps are supposed to be a way in which we glorify HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everything which we find has a symbolism to it. And then we say Hashem Tzvokos, right? So Hashem Tzvokos. Again, name is, we don't pronounce the name properly when we, except when learning or davening. So Tzvokos means armies. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we are the armies of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world. It's interesting. The first person to actually call Hashem Tzvaos was who? Chana, right? Before, when she asked for Shmuel, and the notion of that name is of Tzvakos is that Kodesh Baruch Hu is bringing, just like a general directs the army, so the Hashem is directing us towards the eventual goal. One second. As we say that, Go'aleinu Hashem Tzvakos. Our Redeemer is God in that aspect of Tzvakos. Yeah.
I was just going to say that don't we hear the name of Hashem Tzvakos during the redemption in Sefer Shmos? It's Hashem took out your legions.
Yeah, right. It's not as the name of God. But it says Smeisal Tivo Song. Yeah. And then what did it say in the stick again? It says Amen, Amen. Maharsha says it represents Amen, Amen represents the two Churbanos. Right, the Churban of Bayis Rishon, or Churban Bayis Sheni, Selah, and so that Amen, Amen, it says, represents to us the Amen of Emunah, which comes from the word Amen, and the Amen of B'Heshmei Rabba Mevarach, right? Because it says that people who say, if you say Amen properly, it's like redemptive. We say Amen Heshmei Rabba, it's redemptive. So it represents these Amens represent the Kedusha and the Amens, which we say, which are part of which that which keeps us alive, so to speak, in Golus. And of course, it says that a person who answers Amen is greater than the person who makes the bracha, right? Because the Amen means you affirm things even though you didn't actually do them or experience them. And so to a person, we are supposed to affirm things, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, throughout the world, wherever we find ourselves. There's more simple than that, but that's enough for now. And then it says, V'nayich. When we do this, it rests. What does V'nayich mean? So he says, it's not, we go back to Eretz Yisrael. At the end of this whole sequence, you might find, it says, Menucha in the Golus. In other words, if you do this, you're going to find a respite, a time of tranquility in the Golus wherever you find yourself. Okay? And then the next thing comes along. So, I don't know how late we want to go tonight. We did the first part. Should we stop here for tonight?
What time is it?
It's 11.
I think we have until we have to go 11 to 10.
5 more minutes.
5 more minutes? Okay, so let's start the next part. We'll finish it out later, next week. So it says, Amar Rabba, Ishtali Nechusei Yama, Ben Gala Gala Klasmei Parsei. Between each wave, there are 300 parsos. Varuma the Gala Klasmei Parsei. And the height of each wave is 300 parsos. It goes on, but I'll stop for the moment here. Again, 300 is an exaggeration. But it's interesting that the height is 300. It's symbolic. It's not exaggerating. I mean symbolic. The height is 300, and the length between each wave is 300. Because each wave, whatever affliction we have during that wave, covers 300 units of Golus. There's certain correspondence there. There's an amazing statement by Rabbi Chana Wasserman, supposed to have made just before he was killed by the Germans in World War II. They were killed outside the city of Kovna, and he was speaking to his Talmidim, and he said in Shamayim, now they consider us to be karbanos, we're about to be slaughtered, or Kiddush Hashem, and a carbon, you're not allowed to have any stray thoughts, so we shouldn't have any stray thoughts. And he said we should have in mind that our death should be a protection, a merit for our brothers and sisters in America. It was that our death in Lithuania should have a protection for America. So there's this unity between Jewish people, among the Jewish people, throughout the generation and through the generations, in which there is no such thing as one person suffering or a group suffering only for itself. Somehow, and we don't of course understand how this works, but somehow everything is united. All Jews throughout time, throughout space, are united, and therefore the suffering for one generation can atone for another generation. And therefore, you have this idea of the correspondence of the waves in height, meaning the severity of the difficulty, to the distance, which I believe is a correspondence of travail to time. So I made myself a cute little, and this is my say from Bava Basra, I made myself a cute calculation, which I don't take seriously. Okay, but you figure the major waves of persecution usually come along every 300 years or so among the Jewish people. You start at year 6000, count backwards. That's year 2240, and you go back 300 years, you get to 1940, right? So that's easy, right? That's the Second World War. You go back another 300 years to 1640, you get the Khmelnytsky massacres in Poland. You go back another 300 years, 1340 or so. Again, these are approximate. You get the Black Plague, when many Jews were killed because they didn't die in the Black Plague. Everybody familiar with that?
They didn't die, no, because they were sure they
Yeah, right. So that's they didn't die. They killed us. Then you go back another 300 years, and this one's too. It doesn't go back 300, yeah, so it's a little bit off. But the 1090s, so it's short by about 50 years. You have the Crusades, right? And you go back 300 years from that, so you get the 700s. You get the rise of the Karaites, which led to basically the Torah's glory in Bavel coming to an end. You go back about 300 years from that, and you go to around the year 500, and you get to the persecutions of the Zoroastrians, and therefore the Talmud came to an end. You know, we didn't end the Talmud because we wanted to end it. We ended because the persecutions became so great that they couldn't continue in adding on. And then you go back another 300 years from that, from the year 500, you get to again, these are approximate, you get to the destruction of Beitar and Alexandria and Asar Malchus, which was the end of the period of the Churban. So I was advised when I put out the Sefer by some great rabbi not to include this list, because it's too cutesy, and it may be too cutesy. But nevertheless, I put it in because I felt there's something to it. In other words, yes, the 300 is metaphorical, but there's also a pattern of 300s in Jewish history which one can identify and correlate and see how every 300 years or so we go through that uprooting and that those suffering, which then atones for the lulls in between. Okay, so we'll stop here for this evening. Is this what you envisioned? Is it what you...
Yeah.
Yeah? Great. Okay.